back. I'm Adam, functional bodybuilding coach and physical therapist. Today we're going to devote this whole session to hip external rotation. So just quickly before we start, hip external rotation is this motion where my foot is coming towards the inside, but the head of my femur is spinning towards the outside. Thus we call it hip external rotation. So you can even use this position, just kind of test, okay, what does my hip external rotation look like? And then we'll go through a handful of stretches and you can retest that afterward just to see if you've made any change. So we're gonna start with our butterfly stretch. So butterfly stretch, feet are gonna come together. I'm gonna bring my knees as close to the floor as I can, and I'm gonna sit up nice and tall. Okay, we're gonna hold this position for about 2 minutes. So really try to relax during these 2 minutes. Let those knees keep falling farther and farther apart, closer and closer to the floor. Okay, remember, big inhales, bigger exhales, really trying to relax into this stretch. If you have a wall close by, you can just sit up against the wall just to make sure your back stays in a nice upright position. If you don't have a wall around you, that's okay. You can just stay in this position. Continue to just actively pull those knees apart and really focus or pay attention on your back position. Make sure you're not rounding. Okay, we're almost a minute into this stretch. If this is pretty easy for you, you can push into the knees just to put a little bit more pressure on those hips, push the knees a little farther apart. You can also add some weight, just putting some weight on top of the knees, like so. Just to apply a little bit more pressure to those hips. Again, even with the weight, I want to make sure my back is in a good position. I'm not rounded through my back. But now this weight gives me a little additional stretch, pushes my knees just a little bit closer to the floor. So let's hold for another minute if you've added weight. Keep focusing on those exhales. Every exhale, see if you can bring your knees a little closer to the floor. Okay, we're getting close to the end of that second minute. If you need to take a break out of this position, you can. Otherwise, let's go into a few contractions in this position. So our first contraction, I'm gonna keep my hands here so that my legs don't move, making this an isometric contraction, but I'm gonna try to push my knees inward like so. I'm gonna push, and then we're gonna hold for about 20 seconds, okay? So push inward up into your hands. We're gonna hold for 20 seconds. Keep holding, push as hard as you comfortably can. Push, push, still keep that back in a nice upright position. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. And then now I'm gonna try to drive my knees close to the ground. So I'm actively pulling my knees apart from each other, closer to the ground. We're gonna hold that active contraction, again, about 20, 30 seconds. So I'm sitting nice and upright. I'm pulling my knees apart, close to the floor. Keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. Good, 3, 2, 1, and good. You can relax, come out of that position. Okay, so next we're gonna move into another hip external rotation stretch. We're gonna move into our figure 4 position. I'll show you this from a couple different positions just so you can see what's going on here. But one leg is going to come up to 90 degrees at the hip and 90 degrees at the knee. My other leg is going to cross in front of my knee, and now I'm gonna pull this leg close to me to stretch this right hip into external rotation, okay? I'm gonna hold this position for about a minute. So from a side angle, it looks like so. Holding this position, okay? We're gonna hold about a minute on each side, and just like our last stretch, we're gonna add a few contractions at the end of this stretch. Now, if this leg that's here on the bottom, that leg's getting tired, you can just push it against the wall to almost give yourself a little bit more force of pushing and not as much effort to keep the leg hanging up. But you can push this against the wall. I'll use my bench as my mock wall, but just like this, I can push my foot against the bench. Makes it a little bit easier to hold in this position and allows me to push a little bit more force into this leg for more external rotation. Okay. So again, we're just gonna hold about a minute. Okay, we're getting close to the end of the first minute on one side. We're gonna start those contractions. So the first contraction, I'm gonna push this foot into the thigh. So it's gonna do this type of motion, pushing into the thigh, and I'm gonna hold that position. So I'm gonna push and hold. Again, we're gonna hold about 20 seconds. I'm gonna push as much as I comfortably can. Push and hold, push and hold. And then now I'm gonna try to pull this leg away from this thigh. Now I'm already in an end range stretch position, so I probably won't be able to move it off the leg, but I'm gonna keep trying to pull my foot this way, keep externally rotating that hip, keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. Again, bring that foot towards you, bring that foot towards you, hold again 20 seconds. And then relax, okay? We're gonna do same thing on the other side. So again, I'll show you from this position. Foot is gonna cross over, and we're just gonna hold this stretch position for a minute. Okay, I'm doing most of the pushing with this bottom leg to bring my hip into this external rotation position, but I'm using just a little bit of assistance with my hand as well. Again, we're just gonna hold a minute, and then we're gonna do those two contractions at the end, both for about 20 seconds. During our minute stretch, keep trying to pull that foot closer to you, bring that knee farther away from you. Keep exhaling, relaxing into the stretch. Okay, finishing that minute, we're gonna start with our first contraction, pushing this top leg into the thigh of the bottom leg. Trying to push that foot away from you. Again, hold for 20 seconds. Keep holding, keep holding. Push as much as you comfortably can. Good, and then we're gonna try to pull the foot towards us. So try to actively move that foot off of that bottom thigh without moving that bottom thigh. Again, we're at our end range here, so it's okay if you cannot move, but I'm just trying to pull that foot away, actively, externally rotating. Good, keep pulling, keep pulling. Good, and relax out of that position. Just shake the hips out for a second. Relax after those first two stretches. We're gonna move into another stretch for hip external rotation because that is the focus today. So we're going to go into our shin box position. Shin box position is like so, right? I have my 90-degree angle here on my back leg and my 90-degree angle here at my front leg, sort of creating this box between my shins. So this is the position we're gonna be in. We're gonna focus on this front leg. So I'm gonna keep my chest in the direction of this front leg. I'm gonna make sure I have a little bit of arch in my low back. I don't wanna round in this position. So I'm gonna arch through my low back. I'm then gonna start to just lean forward over this front leg, but keeping my chest oriented upward. Okay, I should feel a little bit of stretch through the back of my front hip here. And we're gonna hold this position. Again, we're gonna hold about a minute in this position. As that hip opens up, you can keep leaning forward farther and farther, but making sure that low back doesn't round and that you always have that chest oriented forward. Okay, place the hands wherever you feel comfortable, wherever you can balance in this position. Again, don't let that low back round. Keep that chest forward. Keep leaning forward to get more and more stretch in this position. Okay, a couple more big exhales. And we'll go one more big exhale. Great. Then we're going to switch. Same thing on the other side. So find that shin box position on the other side, 90 degrees at both knees, creating that box between the shins. I get my nice upright posture, and then I'm going to start to lean forward. I'm only leaning forward as much as I can to where I don't lose that back position, and then I keep my chest facing forward. If I start to lean forward and come in like this, I have leaned forward too far. So keep that arch in the back, keep that chest forward, and then just lean your body weight over this leg to feel that stretch in through the back of the hip. Sinking into the stretch. Don't let that back round. Keep leaning that chest forward. Couple more exhales. And then ease out of that position. Okay, let's go back to the shin box position on the first side. Now we're just gonna kind of actively, we're gonna keep the legs still, but we're gonna actively move our torso to bring the hip into external rotation. So I'll show you a couple from different angles, but in this stretch position, we're gonna take this top arm, we're gonna thread it underneath this opposite arm, rotating through the spine, really stretching through this hip, holding for a few seconds, and then bringing it back. So from the front, it looks like this. I have my shin box position. My arm is out to the side of my hip. I reach through, stretching through this front hip, stretching some thoracic rotation as well, and then I'm gonna bring it back. Okay, we'll just do about 5 on each side. Reach as far as you comfortably can. And we'll go one more on this side. Okay, and then we're gonna go onto our other side. So again, find that shin box position on the opposite side. Hand is out directly to the side of the hip, and then I'm gonna thread my arm through and stretch through this front hip. Okay, one more. Do one more from this shin box position. So I'm gonna find my shin box position on the first side, but now I'm gonna be moving this back hip. So I'm just gonna lift this knee up and away as far as I comfortably can, like so. If my torso rotates a little bit with it, that's okay, but try to keep this leg pinned to the floor as you open this leg up. Okay, we're just gonna do 5, holding for a few seconds at the top. Contracting those muscles on the side of the hip to really pull the knee away from the center. A couple more. Okay, same thing on the other side. Rotating this back leg, knee comes up as far as I comfortably can, keeping this leg pinned to the floor, and then I bring it back down. Just 5. Okay, one more. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna go one more stretch before a couple more active movements, but our last stretch is going to be an elevated pigeon stretch. So any elevated surface that's near you will work perfect. The leg is gonna come up onto the elevated surface. I'm gonna put my shin flat on there, and I'm gonna try to keep my back in a nice straight position. Again, stretching through the back of that hip. Okay, so here's my front angle, chest is nice and upright, shin is flat on my elevated surface. From the side, same idea. This will give you a better idea of my back position. So I have my knee at a 90-degree angle. I'm keeping my back nice and upright, stretching through this part of my hip here. Okay, and we're gonna hold in this position about a minute each side. Now, depending on how high the surfaces you're using, you can adjust this back leg, the position of it. Some surfaces you may need to come more upright, like so. Other surfaces you may need to bend the knee or just walk the leg farther back to find that right angle for this front leg. Keep exhaling, sinking into this position. As you sink into this position, see if you can just keep sinking your body weight or your butt lower towards the ground. Couple more exhales. Okay, and switch sides. I'll show you again from the front. Foot comes onto the elevated surface. This knee is at a 90-degree angle. And then I adjust my back leg to keep my torso in a nice upright position. If this position is very challenging for you to lay the leg flat on the surface that you're using, you can also just hang it off the edge, like so. Now I can keep that knee at 90 degrees, but my foot doesn't have to be lifted as high up. It's gonna be a little bit more comfortable for the hip if you're limited in external rotation. So my left side's a little bit more limited than my right side. So for the rest of our minute, I'm gonna just hang out in this position. Still keeping my torso nice and upright. Keep sinking into this front hip. Keep exhaling. As I exhale, I sink lower. A couple more exhales. And one more. Okay, ease out of that position. So So we've done a lot of stretches for hip external rotation today, as well as a couple active motions. We're just gonna finish with a couple more active motions. So we're gonna go back, similar position to the shin box. So I'm gonna find this 90-degree angle at the knee, but now I'm not as concerned about what this back leg position is. Just put it in a position that's comfortable. I'm gonna come onto my elbow, and then what I'm gonna do is just lift my foot away from the floor, externally rotating my hip. I'm gonna hold for about 5 seconds, and then I'm gonna slowly lower. So I'll show you from this angle as well. I'm resting on my elbow. I try to just lift my foot away from the floor. I'm holding as hard as I can, trying to lift up as high as I can for about 5 seconds, and then I'm lowering. If that's challenging for you, lay even more on the side. I can just lay all the way onto my shoulder instead of my knee, and now I'm gonna do the same thing. So I lift my foot. You can see I can get much higher here now that I'm on my shoulder. I'm gonna hold for about 5 seconds, and then I'm gonna slowly lower. Okay, let's do about 2 more. Again, I want you to do about 5 total, holding for 5 seconds, adjusting to the position that's comfortable for you. So if you're on your shoulder, it's gonna be a little bit easier. On your elbow, a little bit harder, and then all the way up onto the hand will be the hardest. So lift the foot, hold, 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 and bring it back down. I'm gonna switch sides, go through the same motion on my other hip. I'm going to lift and hold, holding. You can see my leg is shaking a little bit. I'm really trying to hold that leg up as high as I can, pushing as hard as I can in that top position. Okay. Again, 5 on each side. Okay, a couple more. And last one. Okay, similar to just that active hip external rotation, we're gonna finish with that assessment that we did at the very beginning. So this is actually gonna be an active hip external rotation drill, but you can also reassess what you've changed throughout these stretches and through this session. So I'm just going to use one leg at a time. Hip is at 90 degrees, knee is at 90 degrees. I rotate the foot to the inside and I hold about 2 or 3 seconds, and then I bring it back. Okay, I rotate and I hold 2 to 3 seconds, and then I bring it back. Now, as you bring that foot to the inside, try to not let the knee drop to the outside. This thigh should stay perfectly vertical as you rotate that foot to the inside. Okay, a few more on this first side. I'm gonna go one more. Rotating as much as I can. Think of that head of the femur just spinning in the socket of your hip. Okay, and then we're gonna switch sides. Same thing, 90 degrees at the hip, 90 degrees at the knee. I rotate that foot to the inside as far as I comfortably can, and I bring it back. Rotate to the inside, hold, hold, and I bring it back. Okay, a few more to finish off. And I'm just checking in with myself. Is this better than when I started? Does it feel a little bit easier? Can I get my foot a little bit farther to the inside? Okay, and one more. Awesome. So that was a nice deep dive into hip external rotation. If hip external rotation is limited for you and you really want to push it a little bit more, you can go through that same sequence one more time.